A woman by the name of Taylor Parker. This woman is a piece of freaking work. I am going to tell you the story of what she did to a 7.5-month pregnant woman by the name of Reagan Hancock. This woman, Taylor Parker, she fabricated an entire life, an entire series of lies over and over and over again. She told her boyfriend, Wade Griffin, that she was pregnant. This was actually the second time she lied to him and told him she was pregnant. They even had a gender reveal party, telling everyone they were having a girl. Wade was completely clueless. Don't ask me how he could be that clueless about this, but he was. Of course, Taylor was a good liar, and he trusted her for some reason. So on October 9th, 2020, she told Wade she was going to the hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma, to pre-register to be induced to deliver this baby. That same morning, police in New Boston, Texas, received a 911 call from a frantic woman saying that her daughter had been murdered. The responding officers found Reagan Hancock dead at the scene. They later learned that she had been 35 weeks pregnant at the time. And when they discovered her, they realized she had a huge cut to her abdomen and no baby. Taylor Parker attacked Reagan, sliced open her stomach, took her baby out of her womb, and took off. The baby, Braxlynn Sage, she did not survive. To top it off, Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was home at the time. But not only that, around the same time that morning, a Texas state trooper saw a woman driving erratically and pulled her over. Well, that woman was Taylor. She was holding a baby in her lap, and the umbilical cord was stuck down her pants. It was an attempt to make it look like she had just given birth to this baby. Welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Catherine. Hi and welcome back. And please leave a comment below. Leave me some comments. Tell me if you want me to continue this line of cases to deep dive on. You know, like I had said before, if you're new here, please consider subscribing so that you get to know me and join us on our live streams. But like I said before, I am an RN, a registered nurse, and my specialty has been OB nursing for 21 years, labor and delivery, and high-risk OB case management. So these cases I find particularly interesting, being that they're somewhat related to my line of work. And so many of the moms I deal with are just wonderful, kind, loving people that are having the miracle, the biggest miracle of their lives, their baby. And yet there's these other women that can come along and take that away from them. It's sick, right? So leave me a comment if you'd like to have more of these cases reviewed by me. Forensic psychologist Teresa Porter, she's an expert on female violence and the co-author of a book called Female Aggression. She believes that the motive behind fetal abductions is not because they desperately want a baby. She said it's not a maternal urge run amok. She points out that it leans towards narcissism and grandiose delusions as the cause to commit these crimes against other women. She said there's no evidence that they will bond with the babies that they snatch. She said the women are often extreme con artists, and they are psychologically impaired, but they are not psychotic. Taylor Parker's first marriage was to a man by the name of Tommy Wakasi. And Taylor and Tommy had 2 children, a girl and a boy. After she delivered her second baby, she had a tubal ligation, which means she was sterilized. They cauterize the tubes, they separate them so an egg cannot get through from the ovary to through the fallopian tube to the uterus to implant. Can't happen anymore. And later, she actually had a hysterectomy, so she did not have a uterus. And that hysterectomy took place in 2015. Taylor's entire family was aware that she did not have a uterus. So in 2015, she had gone to the hospital and they found that she had an ectopic pregnancy, which makes a little bit of sense since the tubes were cauterized or tied. The egg couldn't get all the way through. So yeah, that could be a complication of a tubal ligation. It shouldn't be, but it could be. Also said she had endometriosis, which is scarring of the uterus that can cause a lot of cramping and bleeding and all that kind of stuff. Because of the condition of her uterus and because she already had her tubes tied, the doctor suggested that she have a hysterectomy. Taylor's mom's name is Shauna. Allegedly, she gave consent for the hysterectomy while Taylor was unconscious under sedation from the ectopic issues, and they had found the endometriosis. So let's dig into this crazy freaking human, unbelievable human, if you even want to call her a human. Hunter Parker was her next husband, and she married him after her divorce from Thomas Wakesi. He had no idea that Taylor was infertile, not a clue. She claimed that she had all these medical problems, she'd fake seizures. She was a hot mess, and she was a hypochondriac, and she was a liar. She would do all this to keep their marriage together. Two of her friends came forward after her second marriage and said that Taylor was desperate to have a daughter. And then she told them that she couldn't because she had uterine cancer. Someone without a uterus cannot have uterine cancer, but leave it to Taylor to be able to come up with this one. She actually offered them each $100,000 that she did not have to become a surrogate for her. And then she also told them that she lost a daughter after birth and that she miscarried twins. And she also told them that her and Hunter hired a surrogate, and then Hunter had an affair and slept with the surrogate. So that didn't work out. Hunter did testify in court that she did try to convince him to get a surrogate and get a loan for the money to get the surrogate. And then she said, my grandmother will pay for it using cash. And the cash would be delivered by a man by the name of Tim Hightower. And then Hunter received these texts from a guy claiming to be this Hightower, this Tim Hightower. And one of the texts, there was a picture of a duffel bag full of cash. Look, here's your money to pay for the surrogate. But of course, where was he going to come up? Where was Taylor going to be able, was this guy going to show up? What happened? Well, Taylor comes up with a story and tells Hunter that the guy got in an accident, that the guy, Tim Hightower, got in an accident on the way to deliver the money, nonetheless. And she said that the first responders stole all the money. So there went that money. No surrogate, no money to pay for the surrogate. Womp womp. They did separate in April of 2019. And after that, within a few weeks, Taylor met a guy at a rodeo in Texarkana, the Rodeo and Watermelon Festival, and started dating him. His name was Wade Griffin. Wade was 27 years old. So this event that they met at is like a big event in Texarkana. There's barrel racing, steer wrestling, team roping. It's like a big old rodeo festival. And of course, watermelon. If you picture Wade, and I can put a picture of him up, he is just like a country, good old country boy, red hair, tall, country bumpkin kind of guy. Wade had never been married and he had no children. Wade was a roofing supervisor. He also bought and sold wild hogs that he would sell to a meat processing plant. Wade was just a simple dude. He lived in a small cabin in Sims, Texas, and he lived a simple life. Elaborate story, and what do you know? It worked. She moved in with him. This was the first of many lies that she told Wade, and Wade was gullible enough to believe. She made him believe that her family owned all this land that was oil-producing, gas-producing land, and that the money would come to the family in royalty checks. This made her family multimillionaires. She told him that her grandparents recently transferred $6 million into her bank account. because they wanted her to maintain a property by the name of Nolan Place. You know, they were getting up there and they couldn't maintain it themselves. So they wanted their dear granddaughter, Taylor, to maintain this. So here's $6 million, transfer to your bank account. She tells Wade all this. And the money was exclusively to keep up this Nolan Place. But in Taylor's world, the story goes that her mom, Shauna, was extremely distraught because she didn't have access to this money and Taylor did. So apparently, according to Taylor in her elaborate lie, she told Wade that her mom, Shauna, had hired a hitman to kill her. But just in time, the police caught up to the hired hitman and there was a shootout. It was a shootout between the Mexican mafia and the police. And Shauna was arrested in this elaborate lie, thrown in jail, and she was awaiting trial, but she wound up committing suicide in jail. Now, Taylor says to Wade, now you're not going to read about any of this in the newspaper or in the media because it is under wraps. There was no family fortune. There was no oil producing land. There was no royalty checks. Shauna did not hire a hitman. And I guess Shauna was completely oblivious to all the slanderous stuff that Taylor was saying about her. So in the beginning of the relationship, Wade says that Taylor was a good house guest. She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of things. So while Wade was at work, she would cook, she would clean, she'd take care of his livestock. She was pretty helpful in the beginning. We would look forward to these home-cooked meals that she would make. So it was all pretty okay. And he actually thought she was a really good cook. But Wade told his mother that he actually liked Taylor, but he did not love her. And Connie, Wade's mom, she wasn't happy to see Wade settling. She thought he could do better. She didn't trust. She had weird vibes about Taylor right from the beginning. Taylor would feed Wade these lies about lucrative money, property, all this stuff to keep him hooked. Eventually, she announced to him that she was pregnant. And Taylor told everybody, friends, family, Facebook posts, that she was pregnant with Wade's baby. She told everybody the baby was due September 28th, 2020. They wound up doing a gender reveal, and they announced that they were having a girl, and they were going to name her Clancy Gale. She wore maternity clothes. She posted detailed updates about her pregnancy on social media. She shared sonogram pictures. A lot of these were fake images that she purchased online. Apparently, there is a place where you can buy fake images. It's called fakeababy.com. Kind of shady place, right? Why would you fake? Oh, just adds to the problem. She actually ordered a silicone belly that looked like a pregnant woman's belly and felt like, you know what silicone feels like. It's mushy, it feels real, right? Especially over clothes, you know? Push on it, oh, it feels like a real belly, right? It's not just a hard brick or plastic. After she got that, she put it on, got herself dressed up all purty, and they had a maternity photo shoot, her and Wade did. And that was in August of 2020. She also wore it to her gender reveal party and to baby shower. This all was going on during the pandemic. So as you know, during the pandemic, nobody else was allowed in the doctor's office except for the patient, which was quite convenient for her, right? I mean, I was working high-risk OB at the time, and people were really bummed that their partner couldn't come to the visits with them, or their mom, or people couldn't come. So that was probably a really convenient way for her to lie about these visits. She would have Wade wait outside, which was typical during that time. People couldn't go in. And of course, there's HIPAA laws, so Wade could not get any information even though he tried. He actually called the OBGYN for updates, and they're like, sorry, can't tell you. We don't have you listed as somebody that's allowed. We're allowed to give information about her medical stuff too. Even her OB/GYN knew she was faking. The medical staff knew she was faking. And they just figured she was going to fake a miscarriage at some point. She even invited her doctor to her gender reveal party. Eventually, that doctor just was like, we aren't seeing you anymore, crazy lady. You're fired. And they can't do that. Your doctor can fire you from their practice. They can. Taylor's due date came and went, and people were like, where's this baby? Like, prove it, lady. They're waiting. People are waiting, like, okay, how's she going to come up with a baby? What's she going to do? But I don't know if she was afraid she was going to lose Wade. She didn't want to sacrifice her pride, but she was not going to bend on that one. Her first husband, Tommy Wakesey, who she shares the son with, he found out that she was pregnant, and he totally knew. He didn't even have to talk to Taylor. He knew it was a big fat lie. He actually texts Wade to warn him. He even told Wade that the hospitals in the area are on high alert in case she comes in and tries to steal the baby. Now, the day she was supposed to go in and have this scheduled induction, she unfriended her mom on Facebook. She unfriended Homer Hancock, who is Reagan's husband. Now, to back up a minute, she did meet them and established a relationship with the Hancocks, with Reagan and her husband. She actually went to their wedding. She actually took photographs. Apparently she was their photographer at the wedding, or one of the photographers at the wedding. But on September 14th, when they looked back, her Google, her search online really showed that she was premeditating this big time. On September 14th, she searched the web for local places where pregnant women would be. And the results were like maternity consignment stores, doctor's offices, hospitals, clinics. She made appointments at these clinics in East Texas as far as Shreveport, Louisiana. And she was seen both inside and outside of these clinics. And at some of the clinics, she would sit there and watch pregnant women come and go, come and go. And she was actually writing down these pregnant women's license plates numbers so she could look them up while they would come and go. She was looking for a victim. Less than 10 days before the murder of Reagan, she looked up teen pregnancy support groups in Texarkana. And it's alleged she actually went and attended a meeting. One good stupid thing she did is she used her own phone and devices to look for all this stuff. So that came as really great evidence down the road. Some of the research in her phone revealed that she was looking for midwifery certifications, private adoptions. They believe that she actually, when she was trying to devise her plan, she was going to, at one point, pretend she was a midwife to gain access to newborns. She also looked up how to perform a cesarean on YouTube and how to complete an out-of-hospital birth certificate. Her Griffin's mom, Griffin's sister-in-law, a real estate agent, and the Texas Department of Safety Lieutenant Andrew Venable, they laid out two overlapping schemes that Taylor had come up with to try to keep Griffin. One was that she was an heiress to this $4.5 million walnut farm. And the second one, that she got this inheritance and her mother hired the Mexican mafia guy to perform a hit on her. But then she's told people that Taylor's own private detective foiled the whole thing. So many different stories, right? And that started falling apart. The real estate deal started falling apart. And of course, then she came up with this pregnancy thing. She faked urine tests to prove that she was pregnant. She reused old sonograms from her previous pregnancies. Griffin's mother and her ex-husband Hunter, they actually did testify on the stand later on that they tried to warn Griffin. They told his younger brother, but it just didn't go anywhere. Wade did not believe any of this or just ignored it somehow. So again, Wade Griffin's mom, she just assumed that Taylor was just going to fake a miscarriage like she faked the pregnancy. Now, as far as Reagan goes, Homer Hancock and Reagan Simons, they were together for about 5 years before they got married. And they got married on September 21st, 2019. And again, Taylor was there. She took pictures of them. Kinley her 3-year-old was not the biological child of Homer. So they wanted a baby of their own and they got pregnant. They learned that it was a girl and they were going to name the baby Braxlynn Sage. Oh, and by the way, Taylor did not have custody of her other children. And there is some talk that she was actually really mean to her younger child, her son, mean and neglectful to him. And all during all this fake pregnancy, Reagan is her Facebook friend and Reagan's posting things about her pregnancy, how things are going, where she's at, all this stuff was all right there where Taylor could see it on social media. At one Texas clinic, the workers there eventually testified that she had come in at one point for an appointment, but then she started crying that her husband was in the military and he was killed, so she couldn't have her appointment. She had to reschedule. So there's a ranch by the name of Side by Side Ranch, and I'll get to why this is important in a minute. It's in Winewood, Oklahoma. The guy that runs it, his name is Scott Robinson. He buys hogs and then lets them run around on his ranch, and then he allows people to come hunt them. He says a woman by the name of Taylor Griffin contacted him on September 22nd, 2020, and she was trying to sell him some hogs. And so they start to negotiate, but it gets really weird. And there's some red flags, and Robinson was like, this is weird, I don't think so. So she doesn't know she's supposed to have a license, like she can't bring the hogs across Texas state line to Oklahoma. And she also wanted the money up front from him. He said that was a little weird, but not a complete deal breaker for him, but he was kind of getting a little squirrely about the whole deal. Because he did think, like, that was weird, somebody's going to sell 150 hogs and they don't know what license they need. He said 150 hogs is a huge load of hogs. So then she realizes, like, oh, I didn't know about this license thing. He said, I can't take livestock from out of state. So she was like, oh, no, I'm not coming from Texas. I'm coming from Oklahoma. You know, like she backpedals, changes that whole thing up. He winds up telling her, you know what, lady, I don't think you're telling the truth. I'm not doing this deal with you. And he says, good luck, goodbye, weirdo. And then she winds up texting him like 5 days later, and she's like, oops, I just saw this message right now. I didn't even see that. But then she's like, okay, but I want you to know I got all the licensing thing all straightened out. He's like, still not interested. Sorry, babe. Sorry, chickadee. Not interested in your sale of hogs, weirdo. So just remember that, because that comes to be an important thing again. So now we're moving closer. She's past her due date, right? Because that was supposed to be in September. And it's October 5th. And so on October 5th, which is a few days before the murder, an intentional fire was set at Wade's house, Wade Griffin, where she lives. And this caused the house unable to have like running water, electricity, nothing was working because of this fire. But State Farm, his insurance company, they actually hired an investigator to investigate this. They determined that the fire was not electrical and that it was started with a lighter and not an electrical fire. So eventually, another Taylor scam. It was connected down the road. Well, that was nothing else, something else she did. So now on October 6th, Taylor was scheduled to be induced again. And she couldn't because at that day, someone called in a bomb threat to the hospital. What a freaking mess. A bomb threat to the hospital. I've worked in hospitals. Like, oh my God. Can you cause any more chaos, lady? People that can't get out. I mean, insane amount of chaos that this causes. It was Titus Regional Medical Center in Mount Pleasant. And bomb threat called it. Can't go to my induction. They had a bomb threat today. Womp womp. They had to evaluate more than 100 patients. They had to, it's just a freaking mess when something like that happens. On October 7th, there's evidence that Taylor actually researched Reagan's former addresses and the address of Reagan's OBGYN. On October 7th, 2 days before the murder, there is a Facebook message between Taylor and Reagan where Reagan sent Taylor a message thanking her for the sweet gift and the Starbucks card. On the morning of October 8th, investigators believe that Taylor actually did a trial run of what was going to go down the next day. So cell phone data on both the days, the 8th and the 9th, showed that Taylor did the same thing. She left her house and headed the area of Reagan's house between the hours of 6:30 and 7:56 a.m. They said on the 8th, she went to the area of Reagan's house and sat outside for a significant amount of time. Probably watching the comings and goings, when this person leaves, what people in the neighborhood do, when it's quiet, when there's commotion around. And then that night, she actually went over to the Hancock's house. Also on that day, she purchased a app. It's a talk-a-tone app. And she bought it for 99 cents. And it's basically an app that allows users to text and call over the internet. And as soon as she bought that, she texted herself right away. So testing, 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 testing. I'm Taylor. I'm testing myself and my scheme. October 8th, this is the night before the murders, Reagan's husband Homer, got home about 7:15 p.m. And they sat down to eat dinner as a family. And apparently Taylor was coming over. So they didn't really talk about why Taylor was coming over, but apparently Reagan said, oh, well, we're somewhat friends. And Homer's like, I don't know what they did, where they went, but I went to bed. And he does know that Taylor did give Reagan a baby gift that day. Reagan and Taylor hung out in the house for about 45 minutes or so, and then he went to bed. And so he texted her. And Reagan and Taylor went to the bedroom that was going to be Braxlyn's bedroom, the baby's nursery. And he heard them talking about Taylor helping decorate it. Because remember, Taylor's past due at this point, and, Reagan still has 5 weeks to go. Homer doesn't know what time she left, but when they did analyze Taylor's cellular data, they say that she left around 10 p.m. And her cell phone data does show that she went home, but he thinks that she probably didn't sleep at all that night. And there's a neighbor, her name's Brittany, and she remembers seeing a dark-colored car outside the residence that night when Taylor was visiting, around the time Taylor was visiting. And Taylor's scheduled induction, again, is supposed to be now on October 9th, because the bomb threatened everything, screwed everything up before, so now she's supposed to be induced on the 9th. So on October 9th, the day of the murder, after the night before, she left the house, and they have her data connecting at like 12:15 in the morning. She was active on her internet, and at between 3:11 a.m., so we're on the 9th now, between 3:11 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., she made 5 calls to a hospital. The hospital is McCurtain County Hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma. Some of the calls were really short, but some lasted up to 6 minutes. And she actually wound up Googling the hospital 3 times. At 3:45 in the morning, there was a call from Wade Griffin's cell phone to Parker's burner phone, to Taylor's burner phone. And then shortly after that, the data shows that Wade's phone was on the move, going out of Sims where he lived for Winewood. And that's where Taylor had set up this hog sale. So he was heading to go sell these hogs, even though the guy told Taylor, no, crazy lady. So about 4:28 a.m., Taylor started watching some YouTube videos, and they were about cesarean sections, birthing, and births at 35 weeks. And he said, this is a little bit different than our normal searches because Reagan was 35 weeks pregnant approximately at that time. So then at 5:26 that morning, Taylor leaves her house. At 6:31, she gets a call from Wade, and it lasts 6 minutes. During that 6 minutes, she pulls into the Easy Mart gas station, and she gets $10 worth of gas. The Easy Mart is literally 4 minutes from Reagan's house. Reagan's house is only 1.8 miles away from that. And there are surveillance photos that do show Taylor at the counter paying for the gas. Now, at 7 a.m., Homer, who's Reagan's husband, said he started getting texts from Reagan. And he said some of it sounded like her, but some of it was really bizarre and didn't sound like her. It was like, what's the deal? Is something wrong? She seemed to be trying to start some kind of conversation with him. And he said that wasn't typical of her. It was really weird. And then apparently in this text messages, she tells him she just wants to be happy and it's not working out. So can you imagine? 35 weeks pregnant. I went to bed at night. My wife had this woman over, whatever. They were talking baby stuff. So then I went to bed. I woke up. I left in the morning. My wife's asleep. 3-year-old's asleep. And now she's texting me saying, like, we're not working out. What? He said, we text back and forth, but something was really off. Then they did do phone analysis, and at 7:22, Taylor was near the house, but she wasn't at the house yet. Reagan wound up getting a text from Taylor at that point, from that fake number, that fake app that she bought the day before. And then there's also a school bus security. School buses now have security cameras on them. And there is some video of a school bus going right past the house, Reagan's house, at 7:22 that morning. And Taylor's car's not there. Nobody's there. So Taylor wasn't there at that point. At that point, the garage door was down and there's no car. So about 7:30 to 7:40, a neighbor, Patricia, she said she saw a dark-colored Toyota Corolla with mismatched rims parked in front of Reagan's house. She was on her way. This Patricia lady was on her way to work, and she noticed this car. Wade, on the other hand, he's driving 4 hours away. He's heading to sell these hogs. So at 7:35 in the morning, Wade shows up at this side-by-side ranch. He was uninvited, unexpected, and it's the guy that Taylor was trying to sell these hogs to. But Robinson, the guy there, he was like, what? Clients and customers are coming in, was loaded with hogs, and he brought it right up front. He tells his ranch hands, tell that guy to move. And Robinson's like, I have no idea who this Wade Griffin dude is. No clue on the planet. So he goes out there and he finds Wade with this trailer stuck about a half mile into the woods. And at this time, Robinson's told that he owes this guy $6,100 for these hogs. But he's like, I didn't order any hogs. And then he's like, this has to be a scam. Like something really bizarre is going on here. And then he's like, well, maybe they were trying to sell them to somebody else and they couldn't. So now they're trying to pawn them off on me. He didn't put two and two together yet about who we talked to the week before. And so Wade's like, no, I have an order from you. And Wade pops out his phone and shows him all these texts. He's like, these are from you. He said, that's not even my phone number. But whoever's acting like they're me, they're not me. The text says, Wade, this is Scott. The text says, I will see you both in the morning around 6:30 to 7. Taylor said, check made out to Wade Griffin. Check total $6,100. And then it goes on to say, yeah, I have 7 groups of hunters this weekend, so I need those hogs on my property. Robinson's like, I did not write that text. That is not my number. That is not me. I did not write that text. So then he was like, oh, wait a minute. I spoke with somebody named Taylor Griffin. And so he makes this connection now. So he pulls up the real text on his phone and he's like, Wade, dude, this is the real text right here. He said, I told her 2 weeks ago we are not doing business. Here, read it. I didn't want them. I don't want your hogs. I didn't order them. I don't want them. I don't know what's going on here. And then he's like, okay, to his ranch hand, can you show this guy out? I gotta go. He said, someone's pretending to be me. This guy's here stuck. The whole thing's a freaking crap show. And so then he hears Wade telling somebody on the phone, so we're presuming this is Taylor, that the guy said he doesn't want the hogs. So Robinson goes back to his lodge. He's just like, whatever, man, this is so weird. Get rid of this guy. But the ranch hand is like, you can only imagine. Wade's like, I don't know what to do. I can't take all these hogs back. So the ranch hand comes in and talks to Robinson, and he's like, can you make a deal with the guy? He said, no, you couldn't give him to me. I don't want him. But Wade was like, I drove 4 hours. I got to get rid of him. The heat of the day is coming. So they wind up striking a deal, and the guy, Robinson, he winds up buying the hogs for $2,500. Back to the murder scene to be. There's some text messages at this point at 7:49. Taylor texts Reagan, and Reagan replies to Taylor at 7:52 a.m. Remember, Homer, the husband, was getting really weird messages from his wife Reagan that morning. And, but it's not working out thing. And they started ending the conversation, and I guess Homer was probably busy. He replies again to Reagan at 8:33 a.m. and he says, "I love you." And at that point, Reagan never responded to him. Wade, back at the ranch, Wade's still there. He winds up leaving the ranch about 9:30, between 9:30 and 10 a.m. to head back. Then it was reported that both Taylor's phone and Reagan's phone and Taylor's burner phone left the house at 9:14 a.m. So based on all this, they say that Reagan was killed between 7:42 a.m. and 9:14 a.m. And Parker was there. Based on all this data, she was there. Now, the police did collect Parker's phone that day, but Reagan's phone was never recovered, so they weren't able to see the whole ends of these messages for whatever reason. The data shows the last time Reagan's phone connected with the cell phone provider network was at 9:26 that morning, and it was no longer anywhere near her home. So Taylor did her thing with Reagan. Taylor took the phones and left at about 9:14. There's people in this neighborhood. So there's a girl that lives across the street from them. Her name is Brittany Thompson. And at 9:34 a.m., she sends a Facebook message to Homer. I guess she didn't have Reagan's contact information, but she sends him a Facebook message because she knew him from school or something. And she lives across the street. And she says, "Your black lab puppy is out running the street." She was getting ready to go to Walmart with her mom, and they saw the puppy running around outside. And her mom's name is Andrea. They said the garage was up and Reagan's car was in the garage at that point. So she follows her mom over the Hancocks, and they go in the garage, and the door is slightly ajar, and they knock, and nobody comes to the door. They don't hear anything, nobody comes. So they put the puppy over the fence. So she texts Homer again. She's like, "We put the puppy over the fence. The garage is open. The door is a little bit ajar," and nobody answered. So he's like, "Okay, I'm going to call my wife. I'm going to call her and see what's up." So they leave and they go shopping. So he tries to call Reagan at 9:36 a.m. She doesn't answer. So he's getting a little bit concerned. Thought that was really weird that Brittany said the garage door was up. Very strange. Getting really spidey senses going like, uh-oh, something's wrong, maybe. I don't know what's happening. So Homer gets a hold of Reagan's mom, Jessica Brooks, and says, "I can't get a hold of her. This is really weird. The neighbors said the garage door's up. The puppy was out. Can you go check on Reagan?" He starts rushing home. He works in Texarkana, so he starts rushing back home to New Boston at this point. And he's calling people, family, friends, work, daycare. And he's starting to get in a really big panic. He tries Reagan's phone several more times. He tries Reagan's phone several more times. He tries her at 9:58, 10:02, 10:04, 10:06, and 10:20. Nothing. When he got home, the crime scene tape was already up. So he's running home. He's trying the phone. He's on his way. Jessica's going over there to check on Reagan. There's some 911 calls coming in that morning. The first one was at 9:36 a.m. from Taylor Parker. The dispatcher that took the call, she said, "Taylor is at 780 West Front Street in DeKalb." She relays that to LifeNet. That's because Taylor's saying, "I've gone into labor." And Taylor had told her, "There's a state trooper behind me, I'm in labor." And so the 911 operators getting the LifeNet people there, the EMS, and also she's like, I'm having my baby. They ask her what number she's calling from, and she's like, "I'm starting to have my baby. I have to get to Idabel." This 911 call, you hear Taylor crying, telling the dispatcher, "I have a state trooper behind me, and I need an ambulance because I'm started having my baby." The trooper is pulling her over at this point, and you could hear Taylor yelling, "We got to get to Idabel. That's where my doctor is. I'm not going to St. Michael's." I wish we could hear that 911 call. I haven't been able to find it. So she's on the phone with 911. The troopers there, they got body cam footage of this. And she is like, "I'm going to Idabel." not Christus St. Michael's in Texarkana or Titus Regional Medical Center. She's pleading with the trooper that she needs to go to Idabel. She's like, please just put us in your car. I'm begging you. And the trooper's like, how old is your baby? And I don't know. She's like, I don't know. Baby's like maybe 35 minutes old. So at the same time, the dispatcher is actually speaking with EMS on, to tell them what's going on. And Taylor's on the 911 with her. And so they ask Parker if the baby was just born, and they ask a few questions about whether the baby is breathing or if there's any green stuff in the nose, mouth, and they give her instructions on how to do CPR. Neonatal CPR, NRP, is very different than adult CPR or even child CPR. You can hear Taylor going, come on, Clancy, come on. Like, this is her baby, Clancy, not breathing. She said, I'm going to Idabel. I'll take myself. And she used, again, I refuse to go to St. Michael's. I don't want to go to St. Michael's. I want to go to Idabel. My doctor's in Oklahoma, please. And then you can also hear her end of her call, a little bit end of her call to Wade, saying, I started having her. So at some point she's calling Wade during all this commotion too. And I couldn't drive. I was trying to push a baby out. The ambulance is here. So that was caught from the trooper's body cam, but not everything because he was moving around. She was driving a 2009 Toyota Corolla. It was registered to Wade Griffin. And he said when he pulled up, the driver's waving, asking him to come quick. That would be Taylor. And he hears this frantic female voice while she's on the phone with 911. So all this chaos. Taylor's calling 911. There's a cop behind me, blah, blah, blah. He pulls her over. She waves at him. She's frantic. She's still on the call with 911. And she's like, come help me. And he asks her, he's like, what's wrong? And he sees this newborn baby in her lap. Umbilical cord was still attached and it was tucked down into her yoga pants. He telling this story later on, he's like, why don't you want to go to these hospitals? Why do you want to go to Idabel? And she tells him she needs to get to Idabel because the doctor is already there. And that's where her husband is expecting to meet her. And, she was all hysterical, crying, pleading. She wanted to go to Idabel. I'm still not sure why that was all in her plan, but she makes up some story that St. Michael's hurt her last baby. She's not going there. Also, a woman who stopped to help and helped give the baby CPR. She and an off-duty EMT decided they needed to take Taylor's yoga pants off. And they thought she just gave birth. So they're taking her yoga pants off, right? They got some trauma shears. They cut them off. As they were cutting her pants off, the placenta falls on the floor. So they change her into some pajamas that they found in her car. There's some dash cam video of Taylor moving really slowly, like she's in pain, being put in over to the trooper's car. The woman that stopped to help, she works at the school across the street, and she's an actual nurse. And they're feeling really sorry for poor Taylor. They're wiping blood off her. They're taking care of her. They're giving her wet paper towel to wipe her hands. She's crying and talking and looking around and talking to the trooper and talking to the woman, demanding to know what's taking so long, tell her what's happening with the baby. She said she's seeing a holistic midwife in Oklahoma. The story's changing right there during all this chaos. And once she's in the ambulance, she's like, is the baby okay? Nobody at the scene is aware of what was happening at Reagan Hancock's house yet. Also, when the EMT got there, they're like, what was your due date? And she said the 30th. And they're like, oh, in a couple weeks? And she's like, no, it was. So then they're like, oh, you're past due? And they're like, this baby doesn't look overdue. It looks preterm. And then they asked her, like, what happened? And she's like, well, I was at Walmart in New Boston and I felt pressure. So I left and got in the car. She said, I felt like I had to push and the baby came out while I was driving. And when she was helping Taylor helping clean her up a little bit, she remembers Taylor saying, I want to get this blood off me. And so she got a bottle of water and she gave one to her and then one to help wipe all the blood off of her. And she said she gave Taylor a towel to clean her hands with because they had blood all over them. And then Taylor, was helping, and she said something like, "This grosses me out," or "This disgusts me." And she made a gagging noise saying it. "This is kind of weird," she said. Taylor's like grossed out by wiping this blood off, and she's like, Taylor actually says, "She's all over me. Like, it's really gross. Like, Reagan's blood is all over her." And that nurse is like, "I was 100% sure she had birthed this baby." And the dispatcher hangs up as the police arrive. And then at 10:35 a.m., Homer calls Brittany, who was originally the one that told him that the dog had gotten out and they put it over and that nobody was answering the door. He calls Brittany and he says, "My wife is dead." And Brittany was like, "Wait, what? We were just over there." When they researched Reagan's phone numbers, it does show that she was communicating with a spoofed phone number that was related to Parker's, burner phone and to her husband Homer that morning. The police officers say they entered the room. They found a white female on the ground in the living room of the house, face down, with a large abundance of what appeared to be blood throughout the house. A large amount of what appeared to be blood was located on the floor, the furniture, the walls, the appliances, and other items in the home. According to testimony from the medical examiner and a crime scene expert, Reagan was stabbed and beaten in 4 or 5 areas of the home before she eventually died on her own living room floor. They said she had extensive defensive wounds on her hands and arms, 5 skull fractures, broken nose, and more than 100 stab wounds. The medical examiner said it was likely that she was beaten with both ends of a claw hammer, as well as a mason jar of pink and blue sand that was from her gender reveal party. And then they said she was repeatedly stabbed. They found a small scalpel inside her neck during the autopsy, so they know she was probably stabbed with that. They also think she was probably strangled, but they weren't able to rule that in or out because she had been cut in her throat. Her throat was cut. They said her killer sliced open her abdomen, hip to hip, and removed her uterus, sliced it open, and removed her child and the placenta. They had medical personnel that examined Taylor, like, yeah, she doesn't have a uterus. She doesn't have any kind of internal bleeding that shows that she gave birth. And she doesn't have a cervix. A lot of times they remove the cervix because it's the neck of the uterus. They remove it with a hysterectomy. They did blood work, no evidence of any pregnancy hormones, but she kept insisting she had a baby. And then eventually DNA evidence revealed that the baby was not hers, but was Reagan's. The baby's name was Braxlynn Sage, and she was small. They said she had been viable, that she could have lived, but she was deprived of oxygen, apparently, is what they said, too long before getting to the hospital. The baby had extensive brain damage as a result of being deprived of oxygen. They took her off of life support at 1:22 p.m. And then Taylor has these interviews with the police where she's like, "Oh yeah, Reagan started a fight with me. She's pushed me to the ground in the garage, and she tried to prevent me from leaving." More big fat lies, blaming the victim, right? And she came up with something that she said, well, she was so injured after our fight that she begged me to take her baby and save the baby. And she's like, I was only complying with her wishes. She wanted me to save her baby because she knew she was dying. And then she tried to say that Reagan slit her own throat with the scalpel that Taylor used to remove the baby with. The doctor actually testified that the pain of the cesarean section without anesthesia would have been way too painful. She would have passed out from that pain alone. And then she also wound up saying that Wade didn't know that she wasn't pregnant, and that Kinley, the 3-year-old, did witness the scene of the crime, her mother's death, the whole scene. So she was arrested within hours and charged with capital murder and kidnapping. And then she would later confess to faking her pregnancy and cutting the baby out. After the trial, she was found guilty, and she has been sentenced to death, so she is on death row. Once she got to jail, she was continued her criminal behavior behind bars. She tried to implicate another woman in the jail. She tried to get other inmates to help her implicate another woman as the actual murderer, not her. She was just so many elaborate schemes and things that she did while she was in jail that were actually brought to the court for this penalty phase. Now, she told the other inmates that she went to the house. She went to Hancock's house the night before. The two of them got in an argument. She said that Reagan knew that Taylor had been faking the pregnancy and was past her due date. Taylor asked Reagan to call Wade and tell him that Taylor had a miscarriage, and apparently Reagan refused to do that. This is all from Taylor. Who knows what Taylor says is true or not true. That was on the 9th, and she said she wanted Reagan to tell Wade that she was the attending nurse taking care of Taylor, and Taylor lost the baby. And this was supposed to all go down while Griffin was taking the hogs to the fake hog sale. That she had this bag of medical supplies, and that she decided to do what Reagan's wishes were after this fight and cut the baby out. And she told Hannah, this other inmate, it didn't go all as planned, this whole thing didn't go as planned. But she told Hannah about hiding evidence and fleeing to Idabel. And her plan was to tell them she gave birth and then take the baby home to Wade and tell them it was theirs. She would have her mom, Shauna, still stood by her through all this crap, put money on on other inmates' books, because Taylor would do all this fake medicals, like, I'm sick, I got this problem, I got that problem. She'd tell them she had a history of a stroke, and she had MS, and she had factor V lead-in, and all that, which is a clotting disorder. She was telling them all those complications. So she had her mom put money on the books of other inmates to buy her stuff so that she didn't have to pay her bills, because apparently they garnish a certain amount of your money that you have on your books to pay your medical expenses. She would rip her own clothes to be more provocative to other inmates and to guards and to other male and female inmates. And she would tell her parents that she needed money on her books to buy more jail clothes because hers were torn, but she was doing it on purpose. She told her mom that she was at the hospital, but the doctor told the nurse to tell her that he refused to admit her because of her crime that she committed. She told so many lies. She told another inmate who she was having a relationship with, her name was Lena Addison. She told her she was diagnosed with CHF, congestive heart failure. She tells her at one point that she can't have red dye because of her heart condition, but then she has her mom order some red fruit punch for her, Red Island punch. She tells people that she has a college degree, but she only has a GED. She talks about how she doesn't want her children to see her in jail, but then she writes to her son to say, maybe daddy will let you come see me, when she knows perfectly well that her ex-husband does not want the child to come to jail to see her. She told another inmate that she was actually spending the night at Reagan's house, and that she woke up to some commotion, and by the time she woke up, she went and looked, and she found Reagan had been attacked. She said she knew Reagan was dying, and Reagan begged her to save the baby. So she went ahead and got a knife, and also from this medical kit, she got this scalpel, and she said Reagan wanted her to cut the baby out to save the baby, and then she said after she got the baby out, she held the baby up to Reagan's face and said, tell your mama bye. Tells an inmate later that she didn't commit the crime, that these people did. And there's evidence of that, but the DA was getting rid of that evidence. She was in this relationship with this Lena Addison, who wound up testifying in the case, and she told her various stories, all lies. She told Lena that Wade believed she was pregnant because Wade is a effing dumbass. She told her she ordered the fake belly. She would avoid intimacy with Wade by complaining about pain. And she also told him that her OB advised against it because it was a high-risk pregnancy, which that's a good excuse because we do put people on pelvic rest that have high-risk pregnancy very often. And she told her she had to fake being pregnant because she loved Wade and she wanted to keep him. She told her she had full custody of her other kids. She said she would get up at 4 a.m. and do farm chores. Then she would go to work all day. Then she would come home and cook dinner. Then she said she would stay up and hang with her kids till 9 p.m. because that's what a good mother does. She told Addison that on the day of the murder, Taylor, was going to Walmart when Wade called her and told her to go back to their house to put the dog up. On her way back to the house, she was stopped by bandits, and she was either drugged or hit, then knocked out. And then she told Addison she was in and out of consciousness and woke up at Reagan's house. She said the gang had stabbed Reagan and that she only cut Reagan's baby out, because Reagan was dying and begged her. Just that whole other story. And she said that she placed the knife by Reagan's stomach and Reagan, using her broken hand, sliced her own self open. She said she knows how to do this because she performed C-sections on cattle all the time. After the baby was cut out, she showed it to Reagan and said, "Look, it's a beautiful baby girl." And then Reagan smiled big and then sighed. It's like a freaking movie, right? Like some freaking crazy movie. And then she died. She took the baby out, beautiful baby girl, shows her, Reagan sighs, dies. And she told Lena Addison, well, at least she got to see her baby. She said she took the baby to the couch. She tried to do CPR. The baby wasn't breathing, and she couldn't call for help because she couldn't find the phone. And then Kinley walked in during all this, the 3-year-old. And she said she told Kinley to go back to her room. She told Lena, I knew she was dead anyway, and I figured it would take longer to call 911 than just take the baby and go get help. She said she was driving the car, calling 911, and doing CPR at the same time. So there's just so much when it comes to this girl. Like when she had said that her mom, Shauna, was dead, suicide, after the whole Mexican mafia she hired a hit. All of a sudden there was this Christmas party and Shauna was there. So Shauna came back from the dead, and Wade was very gullible to believe a lot of this stuff. Shauna was never dead. And, it's just such a crazy story. But I'm sorry, if that was my kid, if Taylor was my kid, the enabling that they have done with her is insane. And to keep in contact, that's the kind of kid that you're just like, dude, I loved you when you were a baby. Something's messed up. You are an evil murderer, and I will pray for you, and I'm never talking to you again. I don't know. I don't know if it would be that easy, but this is just really sick. People look forward to having their children, to having their babies. It's the miracle of their lives. It's the best thing ever. And for somebody like Taylor just to come up with all these wild stories and just to keep this country bumpkin Wade, how insane is that? So we will keep following her. I don't know. It takes a long time when people get sentenced to death row. She's only been sentenced for a year. So who knows what will happen in the end. But Lisa Montgomery, there's a video I have of her. She did get sentenced to death row, and she was put to death a couple years ago. So if you do want me to continue with this series of pretty long form videos on these crazy medical newborn female cases, I will be more than happy to do so. If you have any other ideas or any topics you'd like me to cover, please let me know. And of course, join us on Saturday for our Saturday live streams. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.